There's a couple different entry-level positions in our department. So our there's four main ones. There's our Deputy Probation Officer series, our Juvenile Corrections Officer series, our program specialists, and then kind of our support staff, which would be like IT or HR, things like that. So first with the Deputy Probation Officer, the requirements are a 4-year degree. And you see, preferably in like a criminal justice or a social service kind of thing, but it can be really just a 4-year degree is all you need. Just a little secret from me to everyone is that I didn't take one single criminal justice class in my career. I was actually a double major of history and religious studies, graduated from Cal State Bakersfield. And so obviously you don't need it, but I wish I had had it because it just kind of gives you a head start. But any 4-year degree, and that's pretty much all you need for that. And one good thing that we do a lot is we'll do all the in-house training. So all the kind of training you need will be taken care of. For our Juvenile Correction Officer series, you just need 60 unit credits, semester credits of college. Or if you had a couple of years of experience in a similar type situation, that's what you need. And then for our program specialists, and that's a non-sworn position. And what they do is they directly deliver evidence-based treatment to both adults and juveniles. And they would also need 60 semester credits, but some of those credits have to be in kind of behavioral health or social service type of fields. And then lastly, for our support staff, it kind of depends on what you're looking at going into, whether it's IT or human resources. It would kind of vary on that. But I would say, so although those are the kind of the entry level requirements, what we're looking for is more about kind of candidate's disposition. Are they a good fit? And so somebody who's positive, somebody who kind of understands what we do and wants to make a difference in the community. And a real big thing is a willingness to learn. So somebody coming in with some humility and going, hey, I'm not going to know everything, but let me learn from the department. And then passion. When we interview people, we want people who are interested in the job and really want to do it. So that's something that we're really looking for. And the last thing is kind of understanding the dual role of what probation is. And what probation is about, I sum it up with accountability and opportunity. So we have to hold people accountable for what they've done, but it's also our job to provide opportunities to people to break the cycle of recidivism and have people turn their lives around. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Like I said a little bit a while ago, I wasn't planning to be a probation officer at all. I was a double major of history and religious studies, but I graduated and I needed a job, and I wrestled at Cal State, and one of my assistant coaches worked for the probation department, and he said, hey, why don't you put your application in? So I put my extra help application in for, it was called a group counselor at the time, but it's called a juvenile correction officer now. And so I started at juvenile hall. And that's when I first was really exposed. I didn't really know what probation was all about. And that's my first kind of exposure to it. And I really liked what I talked about earlier about that accountability and opportunity. And so it's kind of a unique in the criminal justice system that it kind of provides both. So I really enjoyed what I was doing. And I just, from there, started testing. I got permanent as a deputy probation officer. And another great thing about probation is there's so many different things you can do. You never get bored because we work with adults, we work with juveniles, we work writing court reports, we work out in the field, as armed staff. We have 3 different juvenile institutions that we run. So there's all kinds of different things. So throughout your career, you can do a lot of different things. And so that's one thing. I did a lot of different things in different areas. And then I think the question was, how do I get to where I am now as chief? And so one thing is really to be kind of open to go into different assignments and realizing that whatever assignment you do, it's an important piece of the overall puzzle. Sometimes people think one's more prestigious than the other, but really it's all of it working together is what do it. So just be open to that. Obviously a lot of hard work. I think it's really important for people to, if there's issues going on, is to express that and let people know, but always do that in a professional manner and always in a constructive manner. So in your career, there are times where you need to say, hey, something's going wrong, but just always remember to do it in that constructive kind of manner. And then just kind of taking those opportunities to promote, and is that something you want to do? And what I always tell people is when you promote up, you should be working harder. If you're not working harder, the higher level you go, then you're not doing it right. So sometimes people think, oh, that the boss he's got an easy job. He's just up there hanging out. But the way I look at it and what I try to tell people is if you want to take that added responsibility, then, you got to live up to it. So that's just something. And for me, I enjoy about the added responsibility is the ability to make even a bigger difference. So as a probation officer, I was able to make a difference with my caseload and dealing with the individual people. And as I moved up, my your sphere of influence grows, and you have more ability to affect even more change. It's different though, because I do kind of miss that one-on-one interaction. And as you promote up, you don't have that as much, but you do have the ability to set the direction and the vision. And so I guess that would answer that question. For me as chief, it's very different than it was earlier in my career. So a lot of meetings, definitely a lot of meetings as chief. And, you're dealing with all kinds of things. You're obviously dealing with what's going on in your department. And like I talked about earlier, the probation department does so many different things that there's a lot of different areas that you have to keep up with. As chief, you have to be really up to date on the changes in the law and legislation and proposed legislation. So that's something I didn't really think about when I was a deputy probation officer. And then as a chief probation officer, we're a part of CPOC, which is the Chief Probation Officers of California. And so that's our statewide organization. And, there's a lot of lobbying going on and trying to make sure that if there's new laws that it makes sense to us and we get our input into it. So it's a lot of working on things like that. Then there's the kind of the local politics that as chief you have to be concerned about. So as chief probation officer, it's kind of unique because I'm appointed by the Superior Court, but I get my funding from the Board of Supervisors. So I have two kind of things that I have to kind of be concerned with. So I have to make sure that, we're providing the services to the court and that they're happy with me, but I also have to, work with the Board of Supervisors so I make sure I get the appropriate revenue for it. So there's advantages to that, and also, can be a little tricky as well. But that's something. So definitely talking to both those groups and making sure that they're both satisfied with what's going on, and then just making sure I'm communicating my message to my department and what my vision is. And my vision is basically our job is accountability and opportunity. And so everything we do, we should view our job through those lens. We definitely have to hold people accountable. And when someone's doing something wrong for the sake of the victims and our protection of our community, we got to address that. But also giving people those opportunities to change their life around. And so I guess the last big part of that is the budget itself. And so, our budget is around $90 million a year. And we have a lot of different funding sources. Some from the county general fund, some from federal money, some from states. And every year it's always constantly, one's going up and one's going down. So it's a big process of trying to balance that all together. And then knowing what your priorities are, then making sure you're putting your resources to back up, what you say is important. Because really, bottom line, if you want to know someone's priority, you look at where the funding's going. And so that's why since I've been chief, we've increased, our evidence-based treatment programs. We've created a program specialist position, to make sure we can directly provide those evidence-based treatments that have been proven to reduce recidivism. So that's something that's really important to me. But at the same time, also make sure we're holding people accountable. So that's kind of every day. No 2 days are alike as chief. It's always something different. But those are kind of the main big areas that as chief you're concerned about. But I would like to talk about a little bit just about the different positions so people know kind of, hey, what's an average day of a probation officer like, for example. So a good thing about probation, like I said, is there's all different kinds of assignments you can do. So it kind of depends on where you're at. So a probation officer might be assigned to a court unit at adult court, for example. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to get referrals. Every time there's a felony sentencing, the court will refer it to the probation department, and a probation officer will be assigned that case and complete a sentencing report and make a recommendation. So we're kind of like the neutral party. You have the public defender on one side and the district attorney on the other, and then probation's kind of that neutral party that looks at all the facts, puts it all together, writes out the criminal history, and then lets the court know this is kind of all the information. Then we make a recommendation of what we think an appropriate disposition would be. And then obviously the court has the final say in what to do. So that's something someone in a court unit would do. We have the same thing on the juvenile side where you do something similar. The terminology is a little different, but you do something similar. Or you might be a supervision officer where you're going out, you have a caseload of people who are on probation, and you're going out into the field. You're going to be an armed staff in that case. And we have our evidence-based assessments. So we assess everybody to see what risk they are. The higher risk they are to reoffend, the more services we're going to give. And then we do an individualized case plan where we, with the assessment, we know what their criminogenic needs are. So those are those dynamic risk factors that are going to cause them more likely to reoffend. And we tailor a case plan that addresses those top criminogenic needs. So it might be substance abuse or family dysfunction or lack of education, whatever an individual's criminogenic needs are. We'll target a case plan to address those top ones and refer them to services, make sure that they're following up with whatever those needs are. And then we're going out, like I said, going out into doing home calls or visiting out in the field to make sure that they're following through with their terms and conditions. So that's kind of real quick for probation officers. For a juvenile correction officer, most of them are going to be assigned to one of our 3 juvenile facilities. And that is a 24/7 operation. So there is shift work involved in that. So you could work different times of the day. And basically, you're in the units with the youth. And it's not just a guard, it's not like someone who's just sitting there and making sure, they're getting from point A to point B. It's really something where you're interacting with the youth. That is part of it. You got to make sure everyone's there and make sure if there are fights or something like that, you're going to intercede and break that up. But a big part of it is really to act as a role model, to counsel the youth, to figure out what their needs are while they're in there. And another thing that we've increased a lot is our services to the youth. So we've created what we call RAP units, and that stands for Reentry, ADA, American Disability Act, and Programming Services. So these are juvenile correction officers who are assigned to this special unit. So they're not assigned to a specific unit, but they're in the institutions, and they go all around and they find kids who have maybe special needs or need a little bit more attention, and then they'll tailor services to those youth, make sure that they succeed. So that's something we just started this past year. So that's kind of something typical as a juvenile correction officer. Our program specialists, what they do is there's one unit in the adult side and one on the juvenile side. So it depends who your clientele is. But they're trained in probably 6 or 7 different evidence-based treatments, such as aggression replacement therapy, MRT, which is moral recognition therapy, all these different type of things. And so when the probation officer identifies a top criminogenic need, for example, it might be substance abuse, they can refer the client to our program specialist, and they can deliver those evidence-based treatments that will, as proven, reduce recidivism. So that's kind of what a program specialist does. And then lastly is our support staff. And like I said, again, it just depends kind of what you're doing, whether it's IT or fiscal or HR, and that's kind of just the typical functions of any organization. For the benefits, there's a few things. First thing I want to talk about is for our sworn staff. So this is for our deputy probation officers and our juvenile correction officers. It's what's called safety retirement. So it's really it's the best retirement system you can get, basically. And it's basically like 2.7% at 55. So you can retire at 55, and every year of service you get 2.7% of your pay whatever your highest pay was. So I mean, it's really, you can't really beat that, I think, anywhere. So that's for the safety positions. The county offers benefits of health or medical and dental, and there's like 3 or 4 different programs that you can choose. So some cost a little more, some are less, and obviously, but it scales. So it's a nice selection. They are pretty good medical and dental services. I think another benefit, not in the traditional sense maybe though, is there's a lot of room for promotion in our department. And like I said, there were about 600 staff in our department, and there's numerous divisions. And so like the deputy probation officer series, there's a deputy probation officer 1, 2, and 3, and then a probation supervisor, and then it goes into the management position. So there's lots of room for promotion. And another thing is, another benefit I see is the wide variety of services that we provide allows a staff never needs to be bored, because they can do something completely different. They could be working in a juvenile court unit, be bored of that, and all of a sudden they're working in an adult supervision unit and doing something completely different. So to me, that's one of the reasons that I was attracted to probation, just because there's so many different things that we do. And it's not like you're going to be doing one job for, 25, 30 years. They're just really like a bunch of jobs kind of all under one umbrella. As far as the pay, I think it's very competitive. I'm sure everyone always wants more, right? And understandably. I don't have those exact numbers, but like I said, it's all available online. And at the end, I'll give you some phone numbers and some websites to call and connect with. But like I said, to me, the main thing is there's lots of room for growth and improvement for anybody who joins our probation department. Funny, as I said, I didn't know anything when I started my career. Like I said, I kind of just took the job because I needed a job. So for me, just anything would have been helpful. So for the students who are watching this, they already have a leg up on me just because I didn't really understand much about the criminal justice system at all. But I think really what the most important thing is, even more than the knowledge you have, it's the mindset that you come in to the job with, and what's I've seen people be successful and people have not been not successful. And what differentiates them more than anything, I really think, is kind of the attitude that they have and what they want out of the job. So if you come into the job wanting to make a difference, and then understanding what our dual roles are, so you're not just all about accountability, you're not just all about opportunity, you really have to have that balance. So kind of a disposition that's balanced to those two things. And then someone who's open and willing to learn, because no one coming in is going to know everything. And if you come in thinking you do, you're not going to be successful. But if you come in going, hey, there's a lot for me to learn, and I'm excited about that, then you're going to be very successful. Just that, like I said, I think it's probation for me. It's been a great career. It's a great place to work. We really consider ourselves a family. Some of the examples of that is we've had officers create what we call a family relief fund. And so it's like a nonprofit for probation staff and their families. If there's something wrong in their personal life or anything, they raise money and help them. It's definitely, I think people who've worked here definitely feel like we care about each other, and that's something that's important to me. We just started our peer support program, and reaching out. And one thing that I've learned as chief is just, there's a lot of stress in life, and there's job is stressful, and when there's a lot of stuff going on in people's personal life that's stressful too, that we don't always know about. And when those two get together, it's hard for people. And so we want to make sure that we reach out to people and give people, that opportunity. If they need help, we want to help them. That's something that's really important to me. And then also what I want people to know is, like I said before, just come in if you're passionate about helping people. And that's what I really feel like we make a difference in people's lives. I've seen the stories through our program where we've changed people's lives around to where they were really lost, and now they're employed and their families are back together and they're sober and things like that. And that's the kind of difference that we can make. And I've also seen the stories of where people weren't turning their lives around. Maybe it was a domestic violence offender and they continue to reoffend, and we're there to protect that victim. So if you're interested in really making a difference on both those sides, to me, probation is really the place to be.